Hi everybody, Brian Good here. Welcome to Storm Talk for this Monday. I'm filling in for Christy today and tomorrow. Andy will be in on midday, by the way, and Kevin will be back in the evenings. Everybody's all over the place. Here's how we're looking. We got a lot going on, a lot of moving fronts, a lot of pieces to put together. And what I'm going to do is highlight the areas that the data right now suggests, or the high points or the elevated points that we need to monitor. But I want you guys to keep in mind here that this is going to be a basic meteorology type of lesson here on this, and that is that when you get into these scenarios with so many different moving parts, it's really a challenge to focus on part 4 and 5 if 1 and 2 don't plan or pan out as plans. Basically, they do not line up with the model data, the reality of them. It's a cause and effect deal. So the basic rule of meteorology is observation. I mean, observing what is happening. Or nowcasting, we'd say a lot of times. Observing what's happening will help you get you through the other parts. But the problem is you got to do that very close to the events. But we really don't have much of a choice because, again, if we have any one of these parts I'm about to explain to you off track, then that will affect the others that precede it or actually that follow it. So we will monitor this carefully, but here's how today is looking. We've had some cloud cover now over there. There's a lot of mid to high level clouds in the region. I still have the forecast dry. The only thing I'll be worried about, because of the cloud deck and the moisture in the area, would be any type of differential heating where we've got some shady areas going into full sun. You can create downpours in that kind of an environment. At the moment, we got one small one located near Cape Girardeau and several around Kings Island in Ohio, but nothing here locally. Can't rule it out. At this point, I don't see how to put a rain chance in yet. But it wouldn't surprise me we would have to do that later today in a few locations. So make sure to watch the forecast trends in the Wave 3 News weather app carefully, as we will update it as we see the trends change. So, temperature-wise, 77 here now. We got 82 in St. Louis. So very warm and humid outside around the area. Got 72 in Lebanon and 70 in DeCampbellsville. Wider view shows the setup here. It's 80 degrees. It's warmer in Chicago this early day, and they're on Central Time. This is a front right in here we're going to be watching in the next few days. Now, what I'm going to show you next is an overall movement of the front plan, the frontal plan, and then I'll go into the details. All right, so this cold front initially is going to drop down to the south around midnight tonight into between midnight and, say, 4 a.m. It'll drop in. As it does so, it will likely have some showers and thunderstorms along it. Now, just how connected this line is of thunderstorm activity is a little unclear. It looks to be a broken line, so there'll be gaps in it. And we could fall into a gap here in Louisville. We may not. But with the front in the area, we've got to up the rain chance just in case as this passes through. Once that happens, we'll get a break, and then when the sun hits the boundary again, after the lunch hour for tomorrow, it'll redevelop showers and thunderstorms. But if the front is over Kentucky, the activity should be limited to Kentucky. If the front stalls out a little quicker than that over portions of Indiana, we will likely see the rain chance a little further to the north, but it'll be kind of a hit or miss kind of a deal. We'll monitor that carefully as we get a little closer. I'm keeping an eye on some of the data coming in now, and we'll see how this pans out. All right, so then the front, it's still a cold front at this point, but it begins to lose its characteristics and becomes a warm front. And I apologize in advance, guys, if I'm not making any sense or I'm stumbling, because the first day of this shift is always hard on the brain. It takes a while for the mush in the brain to kind of circulate, and this is the time of the day where it's getting mushy, so I apologize. Anyway, as we into Wednesday morning, it becomes a warm front, and it gets angled, pretty sharp angle, northwest to southeast. Thunderstorms will likely fire along that in the morning hours. This is always a classic setup. How widespread are they? Do they fade out? Do we break back out in sunshine by midday Wednesday? Yada, yada, yada. You know how this plays out. The morning activity will tell the story for the afternoon activity, but the afternoon activity is going to be heading our way as we move into the afternoon. Also, we got to figure out the front, because this is going to be like a train track. Wherever this develops in Illinois, Wednesday midday, track southeast, at this point the train track should aim most activity into Ohio, but there's a chance that it may work its way into northern Kentucky. So that's the overall setup here. By the way, this is going to be the front for Thursday to come through, and that'll be the one that'll end it, our pattern for at least a few days. So, as you can see, there's a lot going on. So let's break it down a little more detail in a closer range. Later on tonight for midnight, here's the front dropping in. Notice Futurecast isn't too excited about filling in the broken line. I understand that, but I do think it'll be a little more active than what is shown here. Then we have a break. We get some heating. Once we get the heating, the thunderstorms redevelop again. along the front. Some of those could be strong to severe, and not sure why an airplane flew on there. Strong or severe across Kentucky, especially Indiana. You guys may get a break, but again, the front where it stalls is going to be key on that. Where is that going to be? And we don't know for sure yet, but this is the latest thinking. Then it'll fade out, and then as we get toward Wednesday morning, we're at it again. So let's look at the data now, dive into the meteorology of it all. This is where we're going to get nerdy. First off, for tonight, or tomorrow morning, really, I would say 4 or 5 a.m. When the front is in our area, we do have some pockets here, getting close to 40 knots. So yes, it's decent wind shear, enough to where, yes, you can have some damaging wind gusts. The issue here is that a lot of the instability should be elevated, given the time of day, being that early in the day. So the chance for any of this wind to reach the ground is going to be likely limited. Can't rule it out, but elevated instability should help out the idea of creating elevated thunderstorms to where the activity looks very isolated. Could be some hailstones in this area. We'll watch that as well. Then as we do Tuesday morning here, here's the latest outlook from SPC. It's got a slight risk for severe weather. This is going to be mainly for the late afternoon period, way to our north, and this is where we get the marginal. This will be our leftovers toward 3 or 4 a.m. as they move through. And that's why we're outlook there. Although, keep in mind, this outlook only goes to about that time because the day 2 outlook will then take over. All right, so let's move into Tuesday afternoon. Front stalls. Remember how I said Indiana gets a break, Kentucky gets activity? Well, that's going to be the case. Thunderstorms around Kentucky. Wind shear is weaker, but it is there, but it's weak. Instability, though, is there. Decent amount of instability. So the instability could create some pulsing clusters of thunderstorms. They pulse up to severe and then weaken. Mainly because the wind shear, the wind fields, as you just saw, they're not strong enough to keep them going for hours at a time. So we could have a few warnings Tuesday over Kentucky for the pulse activity from the instability, if that instability is indeed a reality. So then we into Wednesday. Oh, by the way, here's the outlook. Well, it didn't pop in. I apologize. It's the system's on a delay here. But there is a slight risk for Tuesday afternoon, mainly to our east, and a marginal risk for the rest of us here. But again, everybody's going to have a chance at a warning for Tuesday afternoon. All right, then Wednesday. This is where the front changes characteristics, becomes a warm front. Here comes the angled tilt to it all. You can see that by looking at the wind fields. Let me change my cursor so you can see it better. I'm drawing. You can see the angling here of the wind fields. Again, it's not off the chart. It's just modest wind aloft. Nothing crazy. But the instability is there as the warm air surges. And we'll have to watch for a few rotating thunderstorms on this warm front, by the way, for Wednesday morning. So I see a severe risk for Wednesday morning, absolutely, as the warm front passes through. But this is also the period that we need to watch to see how widespread it becomes, because if it becomes too widespread, that'll help us out for the afternoon period, what I'm about to show you. If it's very sparse, much more sparse compared to what is indicated here for Wednesday morning, then the afternoon that I'm about to show you is going to be much more robust for our area. Alright, so that's instability. Now let's move into the afternoon period for the winds. Here comes the MCS. It's right in the wind field at this point, Wednesday evening. Highest winds right over, and they're elevated. I mean, quite intense. Very strong winds aloft. So yes, this is going to be able to maintain for hours, this MCS will. Now, the wind fields only skirt into our northern portions here of wave country. Instability is there as well. We'll monitor that. Assuming that we do regain that from the morning activity, instability would be high in our area, and we need to monitor that for not only for heavy rain, hail, and isolated tornadoes are possible, but really this type of setup is more indicative of widespread 70 mile per hour wind event. Significant widespread event. Perhaps for Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and maybe Cincinnati into Carrollton, Kentucky. But we've got to watch and see how this aims, where the front's going to be, how this boundary sets up, because there is always a chance this could actually dive a little more southeast and impact Kentucky and southern Indiana. So for that very reason, the Weather Service says, or SPC has posted, slight risk for us to account for that potential, that possibility of it aiming more away, but the enhanced risk is a little more likely to take place just to our north. Still early in the game, a lot could change, we'll monitor that. And then Thursday is the final round, the actual front moving in. The instability begins to build out the front. Some severe weather is possible. Can't rule that out for Thursday, and then we'll see some quiet weather. So just talking about that is exhausting me. So I hope you all got that. I hope I made sense. I apologize again. But we've got several rounds. But again, if we don't get, if Tuesday morning, tomorrow morning's activity, and tomorrow afternoon's doesn't pan out right, and especially Wednesday morning's doesn't, then that's really going to change the game for later on. So stay close to the forecast. We'll keep an eye on this. and I will see you guys tomorrow morning.